Hi everyone, welcome back to HowTechs. Today we have the Samsung Galaxy S8 and we're going to do an unboxing and quick setup. Okay, so the box, we have the 64 gigabyte version. It's a pretty small box actually. And here on the back we have all the details. We have a 6.1 inch screen with rounded corners. This is Quad HD Plus with SAM OLED display. And for the cameras, we actually have a 12 megapixel rear-facing camera and an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. And of course, it's water resistant and dust resistant. One of the big technologies they talk about for this is the iris scanner, and it has 64 gigabytes memory, 4 gigabytes RAM, wireless charging, charging pad not included, and some AKG headphones. And we have the midnight black version. So it flips open. And we have Invite Wonder. My Samsung lets you register. So it's promoting My Samsung. Okay, so let's take this wrapping off. It's always the most fun part. So we have the back protector. We have the front protector. So very nice. You can kind of see the extents of the screen here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. So it's really close up to the edge, and obviously on the sides with the curved display it goes almost all the way, and on the bottom also very slim. And in this case, as you know, there's no physical buttons here, so they're all just part of the touchscreen. On the bottom we have basically a USB-C connector, speaker hole, microphone, and then headphone jack. So this is still one point of differentiation from the iPhone 7. They still have the headphone jack here, whereas the Apple has taken it off. And we have volume up and down, and one other button, which I believe is the Bixby button, which is their version of Siri, and power. And on the top we have a small noise cancellation microphone hole. And then this is the SIM tray. And since this thing is so dark, it's actually kind of hard to see, but I think you can see it there in the reflection. On the back, you can see already my fingerprints are showing up. And we have the camera, flash, and I think these are extra additional lighting LEDs. And then we have the fingerprint sensor. And as you can imagine, the fact that it's right next to the camera makes it pretty difficult to use, and a lot of people end up smudging the camera depending on how you're reaching it, which finger you're going to use. So this is one of the big complaints about this device, is the fact that the fingerprint sensor is basically right. The one place that you definitely want to touch is right next to the one thing that you definitely don't want to be greasing, getting your greasy fingers on. So that's it for the physical design. Let's look in the rest of the box. So just a tray and we have our SIM removal tool, aka eject pin, and some documentation. And here in the bottom we have a looks like a mini USB to USB-C adapter, so for all your old Samsung accessories you can actually still use them. And we have an adapter from a regular USB to USB-C. So if you have a USB stick or maybe a card reader or something like that, you can actually still use this on the phone. That's nice. We have the charger, and it says travel adapter, but basically this is your power brick, and it slides open. So this is the one obviously for the UK British style plugs. And this is adaptive fast charging according to the label, so it can do up to 9 volts for the fast charging. And last but not least, we have headphones. These are the AKG headphones, which are supposed to be quite good sounding. Come with a braided wire so that they don't fray. And then we have extra earpieces, and there's actually 4 of them with different sizes. And then last but not least, we have a regular USB to USB-C cable. So this is what you can use to charge or as a data cable. Okay, so that's basically it for the box. Okay, so let's power this guy up. Okay, so here you have it. We've got it powered up now. Okay, so after I booted it up, it actually forced me to install a few updates, including Android, and also even to use the Bixby camera feature, I had to create a Samsung ID, and then after that I had to update the Bixby software. So right out of the box, even though this thing is only 3 weeks old, it forces you to do an update. Okay, here we go. So we have our always on lock screen, and we double tap to get it to the home screen and swipe up. Okay, so here's the Samsung interface. It's a little bit different than maybe normal Android, and you swipe up to get to your apps, and we still have notifications and whatnot up here. Let's go to our settings, and first let's check about the phone. So we have our S8 Plus, and let's look at the software. So we're running Android 7.0 and Android version 7.0, Samsung Experience 8.1. So we can adjust our display. So a couple cool things. In this one, we can turn the brightness up. One interesting thing is if you get it too high up here, it actually warns you that not only will it cause eye strain, but it will also burn your battery really fast. So it actually gives you a warning, and it turns orange here if you're too high. So I guess better to put it at, say, 90%. You have the normal things for auto brightness. This is interesting. There's a blue light filter, which is basically if you want warmer colors, especially at night. This is something that they say is better for not disturbing your sleep, to use warmer colors instead of bluer ones. Especially when you switch it back, it feels really blue. We actually can also adjust the screen resolution. This is interesting. The default when you turn it on is actually just FHD+, not even the highest, which is this WQHD. So let's try switching that and apply. And to the eye, it actually seems pretty similar. I guess if we had some photos open, you might be able to see the difference. You've got all kinds of different things you can adjust here. You can actually set the home screen to be more like either iOS or maybe some traditional versions of Android with all the apps in there without having to pull up. So you can basically swap between those two. And for the edge screen, you can turn on or off this side apps area, and then there's some other things you can put in your frequent contacts and some smart shortcuts, basically for selecting for screen caps, etc. Okay, so as we mentioned, we have Bixby here with its own dedicated button on the side, and one of the big complaints is that this button cannot be remapped. So even if you've never used Bixby, one of the 4 buttons on your phone is dedicated full-time to being devoted to Bixby. I'm not that familiar with Bixby, but just from playing around with it, this is more like your kind of shortcuts panel. So it has a bunch of things like your reminders, bookmarks, etc., schedule, today's weather, and then things that news, things tailored towards you based on your location and whatnot and what you've done. And then actually it has kind of a quick access to some of your photos. These are ones I took before of the background over here. So there's a couple cool advanced features. Let's go through a couple of these. So they have Smart Stay, which keeps the screen on while you're looking at it. So it must use the front-facing camera to basically recognize if your face is in front of the phone. There's some one-handed mode, so especially for the S8 Plus, just like on the iPhone 7, if it's too large to manipulate with one hand, they have this interesting feature which can allow you to use gestures, basically pull the top of the screen down to keep it within range of your thumb. or you can either do the gesture, or you can use the home button. If you tap it 3 times, it basically goes into sort of short mode. That's very similar to iOS. Additionally, you can use the fingerprint sensor for gestures. So for example, if you want to use it to turn on and off certain apps, bring up a notification panel, etc. So swipe up or down on the fingerprint sensor to open or close the notification panel. Quick launch the camera by pressing the power key twice. Multi-window, this is actually probably one of the coolest features. You can actually show more than one window at the same time. So if you touch what normally brings up the apps manager, now you can use it as well to tap and hold to change the current app from full screen to split screen, and then basically pull it down to adjust the size. Okay, so let's do a quick demonstration of the split screen functionality that's available. So let's pull up YouTube, and we have a HowTechs video here ready. And in order to get to the split screen functionality, you want to go to the apps manager and then touch this sort of 2 boxes thing, and then you basically get a slider so you can adjust how much of the screen is devoted to each one. And then in the bottom you can pick an app. So let's look at more apps, and here we can go to our recently used apps or just any of the normal apps. So let's just open up Chrome, and so you can watch a video on one side while you are doing say web surfing or answering email on the top. This is actually really cool. I hope more phones get this kind of functionality, especially for phones with a bigger screen. This is pretty handy actually, so you don't have to stop watching your favorite show just to answer a text message. So that's definitely one of the positive features about this phone. One important thing to note when watching YouTube videos is most normal videos aren't shot in the extremely wide aspect ratio that this phone screen is. So you actually have it often in a lot of cases where if you're watching a YouTube video, you actually have these letterboxing bars on the sides, which is actually the opposite of normal. Normally, the reason why it's called letterbox is because there's bars at the top and bottom, but because this phone is so wide, these things actually are on the sides now. There's a way to sort of zoom full screen, but then you end up getting the tops and bottoms cut off. So that's just something you're going to have to deal with the fact that the screen is not the normal kind of video format that most videos are made in. But again, if you're watching it here, it's not a problem, and you can do the split screen, so you can use the real estate in certain areas where you can't use it in others. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, last but not least, let's take a look at the camera. Works really well on this nice screen, as you can imagine. You can do the normal kind of pinch to zoom. There's also this feature in here, which is on the shutter button. You can basically also control zoom. So, within one, without lifting your finger up, you can do that, and then just click one more time to take a photo. So let's actually try the Bixby feature. So this one, you just touch it and it brings up their Bixby, and it should actually allow you to recognize the image. So it does basically a Google image search, and let's see if it, oh yes, it found BB-8. So that's actually pretty cool. I tried it a couple other times, and it matches to strange things as well, like cakes and other cartoon characters that are not related, but at least sometimes it works. So let's try it on Goku, see if it recognizes him. And the oh, okay, yes, it actually does. Sort of. Okay, we have one definitive match. That's a definite. Some more Dragon Ball. So somehow, in some cases it gets the exact character, in some cases it gets other characters, but from the same franchise, so I guess that's close enough. So that's the Bixby search, and now let's try, they have some filters as well. And these things are basically like Snapchat filters, which you need a face to recognize. So let's see if it will recognize on here, and then we'll just pick one. Yeah, it actually works. So even with a non-human face, it still manages to match. So in conclusion, the design is pretty nice, screen is great, camera is actually pretty good, software for the most part is good. A couple of things we didn't like. First of all, the Bixby button. So we maybe aren't a big fan of Siri and Google's Assistant, and I don't think Bixby is really any better. The fact that this dedicated piece of hardware can only be used to open Bixby and can't be remapped without using some third-party apps as a hack, that's actually really annoying. I'd rather actually not have a button than have a button that's pretty much useless. Other things that we don't like is this fingerprint sensor, which is right next to the camera, and also, as you can see, this jet black version smudges quite easily, so that's actually even more reason why you wouldn't want to put your fingerprint sensor where your finger's supposed to be going, right next to your camera lens. And you can see all the smudges that have come in already just in the reflection. So those minor things are kind of a takeaway, but overall the screen is quite nice. They've done a good job with the buttonless facade here, and the edge is very good and the bezel is very good. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, and please check out our other videos. We'll be doing a whole series of how-to videos for this device. So if you have any questions on how to change the SIM card, how to adjust the settings, how to tweak the software, please check those out below. Thanks. Bye. One other tip, I found that if you press this, the button, it'll actually pause it. So if you're in the middle of a conversation, your phone is somewhere else, you just want to